Hey guys, it's Sarah Poynton, property investor and all-round business nerd. In this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the abbreviations that you will hear from the property industry. As someone just getting started, this stuff can blow minds, so I just want to simplify it for you and explain what each one of them is. I'm going to go through 10, and each one I'll explain what it stands for and what each of the things are. The first one is HMO, or HIMO as it's officially known. It's a house in multiple occupation. And what that basically means is a building, a home that has multiple dwellings inside it. So it's where we've taken a 5-bedroom house and we've turned it into 5 individual dwellings inside of that house. So it's rented out by the room. It can be done on a normal residential building, and a HMO is known as a HMO because you've got multiple tenancies inside of one block. The second abbreviation you'll hear loads in the property space is JV. A JV stands for joint venture. And really simply put, this is where two parties come together to do one project or one delivery. And there's loads of different ways that you can JV with someone, but the most common ways that we JV are with a funding partner, so someone putting the money in and someone putting the deal in or the property in or the project, and you come together to be able to realise the exit of that particular project. So a JV is just where you work with somebody else in partnership to deliver an outcome. The third one is SA, and this abbreviation means serviced accommodation. You guys will know this as Airbnb and Booking.com type accommodation. So it's where an operator is going to rent their accommodation out by the night or weekly stays or for stag do's and hen do's or holiday lets, this sort of thing. It's where the accommodation is serviced. They provide things like cleaners, they provide things like linen changes, and they provide like welcome packs, shampoos in the bathroom, all of that sort of stuff. That's serviced accommodation. The fourth one that we're going to cover is R2R HMO, which is quite a long one, but that stands for rent to rent, house of multiple occupation. And that means a HMO, like we've already talked about, but done on a rent to rent basis. So it's where the operator doesn't actually own the property. What they've done is a rent to rent contract where they have rented it and they're subletting it out to the people that physically live in the HMO. The fifth one I want to explain to you is R2R SA, and similarly to the one before, R2R, it's just rent to rent, but it's where people have done a serviced accommodation strategy using rent to rent. So they rent the flat or the house or the apartment, but they sublet it out on a holiday let basis or a nightly basis. So rent to rent SA. The sixth one on the list is BREE, buy, refurb, extend, exit. Now this is something that has been done for an awful long time, but this abbreviation has only just recently appeared in the space. So what this means is where you buy a property that's a leasehold property and you buy it, you renovate it, so that's the R, refurb, you put some money in to add some value to it. You then extend the lease term that is on the property. So most properties are not easy to buy or mortgageable or interesting to an investor unless they've got over sort of 65 to 75 years left on their lease. So you can buy properties that have got a short lease, say 20 years, add some value, extend the lease, which makes the property worth more money, and then you either sell it or rent it out, and that's the exit. So buy, refurb, extend the lease, and then exit. The seventh one on the list is BRR. More recently, this has been referred to as BRRR, but let me explain what they are. So BRR, buy, refurbish, refinance. What that means is you buy a house that needs some work doing on it. Maybe it's needs a complete back to brick development. Maybe it just needs freshening up, new bathroom, new kitchen, those sorts of things. You buy it, you refurb it, you renovate it, you add in some value. And then instead of selling it to exit and realise your profit, you actually refinance it, which is just a fancy word for remortgage. Most of you will have heard of a mortgage. When we talk about refinancing, it's just moving it onto a different mortgage product. So you refinance it. And then the last R is where, because you've refinanced it, it allows you to pull your profit out, but retain the asset. So then what you end up doing is renting it. So BRRR is buy, refurb, refinance, and rent. Okay, so the 8th one, it's not officially an abbreviation, it's more jargon that you'll hear, which is flip, property flipping. Property flipping is where you buy a property with the sole intention of doing it up and then selling it on. So the plan is not to keep it, it's not to build a portfolio, it's to generate lumpy money, which is a chunk of cash, a chunk of profit, by buying the property, adding value through renovation, and then selling it at the back end. Buying to sell. That's basically what we mean when we talk about flips. Okay, so the 9th one we're going to talk about is LO. This is a lease option, and lease options have been really common in the commercial property space for a really long time and have made their way into the residential space. But you probably, not many people have heard of lease options in the residential space. So let me explain what it is. A lease option is where you buy a property, but you agree a price today, but you actually buy it later on. So you lease it, you pay a rent, with the option to purchase it at a later date. So you might say you're going to lease it for 5 years, and at some point in that 5 years you have the option to purchase it at the price you've agreed on day one. The reason this works is because some properties are in negative equity, some properties need refurbishment for them to be worth what a vendor needs to be paid for them, and so you as an investor can rent it, build the value into it, and then buy it at the price the vendor needs because you can get the lending on the uplifted price. So a lease option, or LO, is where you lease the property with the option to buy it at some point during the term of the agreement at a pre-existing price. So the 10th one is EDC. And an EDC is what's called an exchange with delayed completion. Now, what that basically means is that you're buying the house, and you are, rather than having an option to buy it, where with the lease option situation, you actually exchange contracts. So you are committed to buying it. It's not optional, you are obliged to buy it. So you purchase it at exchange, you exchange contracts, but what you do is you delay the completion by months or years. The reason that people might do that is to be able to own it and control it through the exchange of contracts, then have a period of time that they can refurbish and build value into it to be able to complete at a later date, to be able to realise their profit there. It's a really good way of doing things because it saves your borrowing costs. It can save on things like stamp duty. It can save on transaction costs. There's lots of different reasons why an EDC contract works really well. But the simple way to explain it, which is how people recognise it, is similar to how you would buy a car on finance. You actually exchange a contract, you then pay a lease over a period of time, and at the end, you complete your contract with your balloon payment at the end. Lots of people recognise that car purchase model. This is exactly the same, but where you're buying houses in instalments instead of buying it all up front. Okay, so that's the 10 abbreviations that you'll definitely hear working in the property space. But if, like me, that's too much for your brain to remember, then click the link below and you can download our free abbreviations PDF, which will help you just remember the details that I've covered.